why are low-level students denied university placements?
Now, the new Conservative group of Tory MPs has released a new report co-authored by Jonathan Gullis, who's with us on the panel, which suggests that pupils who fail their maths GCSE or only get 3 grade E's in their A-level results should not be eligible to get a student loan. Jonathan, what's the logic there?
The logic is that university, of course, is one option, but actually we want to make sure we have a better funded further education, particularly in apprenticeships, because we ultimately believe that's the way that you're going to really improve social mobility. I don't think it's unfair to ask for a grade 4 old money C- in English and Maths at GCSE and 3 E's at A-level in order to be able to access student loan, which is taxpayer funded up front, in order to access university. This would impact around about 10% of the current student population at university. If those students went into further educational apprenticeships, that'd be a £1.8 billion boost to that particular sector. And with the reforms that we've talked about alongside increasing the levy transfer to 35%, making sure that actually things like welfare, so at the moment, if an under 19-year-old whose household has got child benefit, if they go to A-levels, it stays. If they go to an apprenticeship, it goes. We're saying, actually, no, if you go to an apprenticeship, that child benefit should remain in place for anyone under the age of 19. And it's firmly something I believe in. Look, I'm the co-chair of the APPG for apprenticeships. I've got 2 in my office working in Westminster because I firmly believe this is going to be a huge way forward. And we want to level the playing field so it's not firmly tilted always to higher education, but actually we have a non-gold standard in just university. Germany, 54% of young people go on to an apprenticeship. It's only 10% in this country. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's good enough, and it won't deliver level.
And you speak as a former teacher, but why have you singled out maths? You said pupils who fail their maths GCSE or only get 3 grade E's in their A-level results shouldn't be eligible to get student loans. Why not say, well, I mean, isn't English...
It is English and maths. The report does say both English and maths at grade 4 is needed. Ultimately, look, if you don't get a grade 4 in English and maths, you have to, when you're doing A-levels, resit those anyway. So, and again, if you can't get 3 E's at university, which at the moment is about 2,740 pupils in the existing university system at this moment in time, then I would think it's fair to say that university isn't probably the right option. What we want to do is make it much more accessible to go on to apprenticeships. 5%, for example, of low-income students from low-income households are doing degree apprenticeships. That's simply not good enough. 30% of small businesses, however, are actually picking up students who haven't got a pass in their English or their maths. They're going to give them a life skill, they're going to give them a trade. We need welders, we need plumbers, we need bricklayers, we need electricians. We can't keep relying on mass migration to fill these vacancies. We should be skilling up our own workforce.
But what effect would this have on the university system? Because if numbers fall by 10%, that's going to mean that 1 or 2 universities would go out of business, presumably.
Well, we actually offer the opportunity for some universities in the report to create themselves as new institutes of technology so that they can move with the ever-moving market, to actually pitch themselves in a slightly different way. But ultimately, as I say, we've made university, so for some bizarre reason, the gold standard. Labour introducing, obviously, this 50% arbitrary target under Tony Blair to go to university is not always the right option for people. We haven't valued enough our further education and skill sector, and that's where I want to see the balance readdressed.
David Aaronovitch.
I'm not sure I understand what problem you're trying to address here. I just don't get it. If you want to significantly boost the FE sector, which you have slashed in the most, to the most significant level, you will say that was necessary because it was necessary after 2010. Then in that case, that's what you do, build it up. 50%, if 50% of people do go to HE, and it's not that many at the moment, 50% don't. You've still got that 50% who you can try and push towards FE. It's not that, actually, and the mass migration point's completely relevant here. I mean, you just kind of bung that in order to kind of get a little bit of applause.
David, as a former Euro-communist, I'm not surprised you're saying that, but that's fine.
The word former is quite important there.
So
because I was actually 21 and I'm now 69. I am 69. I think the kind of succeeding 48 years I'm allowed to have kind of tempered my views slightly. But when you get to my age, you'll have tempered your views as well, and you might have come back to planet Earth, Jonathan.
Why are you sneering at the idea that we'd want
I'm
more
not
people to
sneering
go
at the
into
idea.
further
Hold on,
education.
hold
This
on.
idea, this metropolitan
I'm not
elitist idea that somehow university is the be-all and end-all is absolutely for the birds. What we want to see is more kids get into skilled qualifications. We need more welders and more bricklayers. We've come up with a system and ideas, fully costed, in our 17-point plan, which is something you haven't read, let's be perfectly honest, actually outlining a very clear proposal of how we can readdress the balance, how we can make sure that graduates aren't going in to do degrees that are ultimately never going to make them earn more money than the apprentices.
Ian is on automatic pilot now.
No.
I mean, so can we
actually,
turn this
I'm
back to
talking
the
from lived
conversation?
experience, David.
You've had a good
I actually used to be a teacher on the front line. I was a trade union rep also during that time as well. Don't lecture me about education when I actually spent 8.5 years, day in, day out, in classrooms in state secondary schools.
Jonathan, no one
London
can talk to
and
you
in
about
Birmingham.
education, let alone lecture you about education. Clearly that kind of spirit you learned in the classroom of telling your students what they should think is not something you've lost.
The teacher is the expert in the room. The teacher is the expert in the room. That's how teaching works.
But my suggestion to you is forget the business about trying to penalise students who want to go in higher education.
No one's penalising students.
Yeah, yes, you are. That's what you're asking to do.
3E's A-level is a
forget
pass.
that. Boost the FE sector. Boost the
Which we're doing,
apprenticeship.
1.8
Forget the
billion.
business about attacking migration, because in the long term you're going to require that migration anyway, because we're going to have fewer young people in the population. That's the situation, demographic situation for us. Address the real problems and stop kind of trying to hit the hot buttons for a section of the electorate, really, that's never going to get you back into power.
Okay, let's bring in Emily.
Good Lord.
Who's very calm.
Yes, well, let's try and calm down a bit, shall we? Let's pull apart this big bundle of slogans that we've heard as to what this policy really is. I think we all agree that we need to skill up our population more than we do at the moment. We must do much more work on that. That everyone should have a value, that we should be able to play to people's strengths, that they should be able to be given a proper future, that they should be able to contribute, that they should be able to stand on their own 2 feet, support themselves and their family, and be given options. Right? We all agree on that. So why are you taking away options from some people? If some people want to go to university and they've crashed out in their A-levels, so they haven't done as well as everyone was expecting, let us say, why take away why put a cap on aspiration if people want to go to university and they have the ambition?
Because a lot of them drop out.
Yes.
Well, yes, and some people will drop out who have higher results than that. I mean, you'll have all kinds of people who won't be able to cope with university for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it is because they find it too academically challenging, but there's a whole load of other reasons too. So why put an arbitrary cap on that?
I think if you have an academic institution, and I mean this is very out of date now, so I'm not going to quote the actual one, but there was a university in the last 10 years that had a dropout rate in the first year of 25%, a publicly funded university. Now, I would say that academic institution needed to have a jolly good look at itself and decide whether it was actually offering the right courses for the right students.
But do you know that those are linked to those students who Jonathan is talking about?
I've no idea.
Or is that
absolutely no idea?
Well, if we have no idea, then we can't tell whether or not this addresses the problem.
But isn't there a real point here about the apprenticeship issue? I mean, I actually genuinely think that regardless of whether it is penalising or not to offer a government taxpayer subsidised loan to people who show absolutely zero inclination towards academia. The problem with that, as it stands, is that it isn't clear what else they're going to be doing. It does feel a little bit like they're being forced down their hopes of social mobility or whatever it else or ambition. But I just don't understand why. I think it's a big mistake, basically, that the university remains the gold standard for everyone. Yeah. And I think obviously people are aware of this, and people do think we need people to be, there should be dignity in going to an apprenticeship route instead.
But isn't that the answer? I mean, actually, isn't that the answer? Isn't the answer, in fact, that we should have more apprenticeships, that there should be more options for people? That doesn't mean saying, here are all these options, but by the way, you lot aren't allowed to...
Emily, the report itself makes it very clear about all the apprenticeship opportunities, about reforming the levy, about improving the funding for medium-sized businesses to match small businesses as well.
Lion's share of the conversation in this answer.
Just let me finish. Let's see if I can remember what the sentence was. What I was trying to say was that, I think that we should give youngsters options, and at the moment they don't have enough options because there aren't enough apprenticeships out there. There isn't enough training, a lot of kids won't necessarily know what what am I going to do next? What am I going to do? Well, I don't know. Oh, well, let's go to college. Now, I appreciate that may well be the case in relation to a lot of youngsters, including those who may have an A in A-level maths and who, if they had a possibility of doing an apprenticeship of the right sort, would take that instead. But there are not those options there. And so to kind of be pointing at one particular group and be saying, well, you're part of the problem. You're definitely part of the problem. We'll punish you, we'll section off you, and we will say to you, you can't go to university. I mean, really, what is this about?
Is there anyone around this table who got an E at A-level? I did.